Well, my fellow students of the Force, the Kenobi series has finally arrived, and with a stunning 2-episode premiere, many fans have been left with an incredibly intriguing setup to a widely anticipated story. After 10 years in exile, we finally meet General Kenobi once again, and get to follow him through his life in isolation, his call back into the final fight, and the setup for his last adventure. In addition to the return of Ewan McGregor as the iconic Jedi Master and Clone War veteran, multiple fan favorite characters have also made a glorious return to form. Spoilers ahead for the first 2 episodes of Kenobi. While the likes of Bail Organa, Owen Lars, and both of the Skywalker twins make appearances in the first 2 episodes of Obi-Wan, so too does perhaps Kenobi's oldest friend and greatest rival and enemy. That, of course, is Darth Vader himself. And while he was only present for a single shot at the end of episode 2, this shot seems to have drastic implications on not only Kenobi's future, but his current mental and emotional state as well. Things that we are now here to discuss and break down, and discuss exactly why now Darth Vader is able to sense Obi-Wan, when before it seemed clear that he wasn't able to. So what happened in the last episode that caused this, and why now can Vader sense his presence? Stick with us today, weary acolytes of the galaxy, and let's cover why exactly this single shot is so significant. The implication of the scene is that now Obi-Wan and Vader are able to sense one another through the Force, and they can feel each other's presence once again after years of silence. Specifically, it's implied that Vader is only just now able to sense Kenobi's presence from across the galaxy, despite having gone the entirety of the past decade without feeling any trace of his former master. After all, the scene just preceding this proves that Kenobi did not know of Anakin's survival. At least it was never confirmed for him outright, although we do have another video coming to explain this. Vader, however, has spent the last 10 years relentlessly hunting down his master, searching every corner of the known galaxy for the fallen Jedi war hero, and turning up empty at every single turn. So why is this? Why was Vader unable to locate Obi-Wan for so long? If Kenobi and Anakin shared such a close bond throughout the course of the Clone Wars, then why has Vader been unable to sense his former master's presence for so long? And why is he only just now able to feel Obi-Wan through the Force yet again? The likeliest answer is that this comes down to a combination of a few key factors, the first of which is Kenobi's use of the Force over the course of the last decade, or rather, his conspicuous lack of using the Force. When Obi-Wan catches Leia from falling in the second episode, it takes a considerable amount of effort for something that he used to be able to do with relative ease. In his prime, this maneuver would have been second nature to Obi-Wan. It would have not been a problem for the Jedi Master, which we see of course multiple times throughout the course of the Clone Wars. But this seems to imply that he has cut himself off from the Force entirely, or at least partially. While this is a drastic move for a Jedi to abandon the Force entirely, it's something that we have not only seen before, but it's also something that we've seen the dire consequences of. In The Last Jedi, it was revealed that Luke Skywalker too cut himself off from his presence within the Force, and lived a life in exile much like Obi-Wan is doing now, echoing his first master. This entailed him going years without tapping into his Force abilities, and according to the recent episode of Kenobi, it appears as if using the Force is a skill that must be exercised regularly. In Luke's case, this meant that his friends were entirely unable to find him since his disappearance, and it took a map to his location in order to finally track him down. Despite Kylo Ren and Rey both being incredibly powerful Force sensitives, they still could not feel Luke, because of course he was not there. In these first 2 episodes, it seems as if Kenobi might have done something similar in order to hide his presence from Vader and the Inquisitors. While on the other hand, Yoda went to a planet ripe with the Force, Obi-Wan had to cut himself off from it entirely for his own safety and the safety of Luke, the ramifications of which are drastic. The second factor has to do with how the Force operates, as we know that the Force presence of an individual can be affected by their own emotional state. This is why powerful negative emotions are able to corrupt an individual and lure them to the dark side, with fear, anger, and pain being the 3 most common cited triggers. However, on the opposite end, we know that positive emotions can also trigger various Force-related consequences. Our most recent example being Grogu throughout the course of The Mandalorian as he learns to harness his own power in the Force. The second, wherein Vader and Kenobi seem to sense one another, comes directly after Kenobi receives blatant confirmation that Vader and Anakin are one and the same. Reva, for what appears to be the first time since the end of the Clone Wars, confirms to Obi-Wan outright that his Padawan is still alive. Something which he may have suspected in the past, but it's likely that it was never outright confirmed to him. This information triggers an incredibly visceral emotional response within Obi-Wan, which appears to be the direct reason why his own presence in the Force sent ripples throughout it for Vader to pick up on for the first time in nearly a decade. But while cutting himself off from the Force is a drastic, albeit understandable decision, what are the consequences of a Jedi locking themselves out of the Force for so long, and then taking up this ability once again after years without practice? Let's look what we already know. In Luke's case, this can take a serious physical toll on a user, which even resulted in Luke's death on Ahch-To upon pushing himself in the Force too hard. In Obi-Wan's case, however, there might be a rather unique consequence. We know that using the Force for the first time in years can take a drastic toll on the health of a user, and many fans have cited Obi-Wan's rapid aging as one of the most notable inconsistencies within the Star Wars galaxy. Given the events of the first 2 episodes, however, we might have a more sound explanation for this, and it might be a direct result of Obi-Wan effectively choking himself and abandoning the Force entirely. Not to mention the harsh conditions of Tatooine and the twin suns bearing down on him for so long, which is the current accepted answer for why Obi-Wan ages so rapidly. However, it's possible that while also alerting Vader to his presence, this might also simultaneously age Kenobi far more rapidly than he had previously anticipated, with this flow of power now moving through him. An interesting theory to consider. We're not outright confirming anything here, it's just something that crossed our minds when watching the episode. Nonetheless, the concrete canon answer as to now why Darth Vader can sense the presence of Obi-Wan Kenobi is that we learned in canon Obi-Wan cut himself off from the Force entirely before the events of the Obi-Wan series. And although it's believed that Obi-Wan allowed himself to feel some semblance of the Force because of the fact that he constantly reaches out to Qui-Gon Jinn throughout the episode, and of course it would maintain using the Force in order to speak to Qui-Gon accurately, it is believed that he did not exercise his ability to use the Force at all, indicative of his idea to bury the twin lightsabers in the desert of Tatooine. But anyway, my friends, what did you think of the first 2 episodes of Kenobi, and are you excited to see what exactly the next several weeks have in store for the retired Jedi Master? What are your thoughts for this explanation? And as always, may the Force be with you, my friends, and I hope you have a great day.